Hey, welcome to Chris BI. I'm Chris Wagner. This is
Perry Rocha.
and here today talking about identity columns. Perry, what the heck is an identity column?
Hey, Chris. Good to see you. So, identity columns, what they do is they allow you to create surrogate keys in database tables. Essentially, folks like to have that unique identifier that uniquely identify a row in a table. And identity columns, they produce that value automatically for you without you having to compute a value yourself, without you having to do any effort. We'll do that work for you.
Holy crap, that sounds amazing. Let's get over to your desktop and check this stuff out. All right?
Great. Sounds great.
Hey, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. And if you want early access to this content for $5 a month, become a member. All
Awesome.
right, Perry, tell us about this.
So identity columns have been available in SQL Server since forever, right? So for folks who are familiar with the T-SQL language, there's nothing new here. I mean, there's a couple things that are new, and we'll talk about the differences. But in essence, the idea behind it is you have this one column in your table in your warehouse where the value is automatically produced for you, right? And it is a unique value that never repeats for the lifetime of that table. How do you define an identity column to begin with, right? So in Fabric Data Warehouse, you do that during the create table statement. So you use create table, you provide your table name, of course, then you have your column list, and then you're going to have one column here, which is the identity column. The identity column in Fabric DW needs to be a big int. Okay, we don't support int or other types. I'll explain a little bit why we don't support other types, but it has to be a big int, right? And I'll talk a little bit about the other limitations in a moment. But also, if you're familiar with SQL Server, you know that T-SQL has the identity, one and one syntax where you define the seed and increment. Of course, the numbers don't have to be one and one. You can have your own number. We do not support the seed and increment in Fabric DW. So there's a good reason for that, and I'll explain everything in a moment.
So, can I summarize?
Yeah.
Basically, what this allows me to do is create a surrogate key that I can manage inside of DW where I'm not going to have any replication or duplication. Is that right?
That is correct. That value is unique. It will never be duplicated.
Now, this has been a challenge with like MPP platforms for like forever. And
Yeah.
you're telling me that this is going to be like truly unique and I'm finally solving that problem with the DW?
We are finally solving that problem. And you are correct. It is a problem. It is a tougher challenge to solve on an MPP platform like Fabric is. So when you have a distributed system, think about this for a moment. You have all of the nodes in the cluster that need to process those unique values for you, right? And what if you have concurrent data ingestion jobs? It is a hard problem to solve. We've been working on it for a while. We know it's a highly anticipated feature, and it's finally here.
Yeah, and I mean, for the people who are come from like the SQL world, like you're like, hey, this is no big deal. We've had identity columns for like 40 years. What do you mean this is a big deal? But you hit the nail on the head, right? Because an MPP platform can have data streaming in across all these different nodes, maintaining that consistency until now was kind of a problem and you couldn't do it. But now this does it, right?
That is correct. Yes, in a
Awesome.
nutshell, yeah, you've said it. Now, and since we mentioned the MPP nature of Fabric, it's a good time to talk about how this is different from SQL Server, right?
Mm-hmm.
So SQL Server, you define a column and you say like the seed is one and the increment is one, and you insert the first row in your table. That first row would start with the number one, right? That's not the case with Fabric DW. So in order for us to produce that unique number, we use a kind of sophisticated algorithm in the back end where we take into account things like the machine ID that's producing the code, the number for you.
Mm.
Some other stuff goes into the algorithm, and it turns out it produces a very large number, right? Now, because of that, let's say you create a new table with an identity column, you insert the first row. It will not necessarily start with the number one. It's already the case, by the way, if you're familiar with Azure Synapse dedicated pools and you're using identity columns in Azure Synapse dedicated pools, the behavior is the same. It's going to start with a number that is unique, but it will not necessarily start with a number one, right? And Secondly, let's say you have different ingestion jobs happening at the same time in parallel, right? So the way it works is we receive that request for the ingestion job. We know how much rows we need to process, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and then our engine, what it does is it assigns ID ranges based on the number of rows to each of the compute nodes. So that compute node one will process rows from 1 to 1 million, for example. So it will have its own range. The next node will process 1,000,001 to 2 million, and so on and so on and so on, right? So we take a very large range of numbers that we know are needed for the rows we need to insert, and we split that number across the compute nodes.
Oh, that is so smart. Oh, that's what and frankly, that's the type of thing that I, as an engineer, can't necessarily. I mean, maybe I could do it, but like that would be really hard for me.
Yeah.
Like I really needed you to do this. So thank you, thank you for taking this on.
No, absolutely, and we know because we haven't had this feature for a while. Folks got creative, and folks developed their own solutions to resolve this problem using hashes or using like a composite key, and that's fine. The only problem is that adds up to your compute, right?
Yeah.
You need to process that, and it happens at the SQL layer, the T-SQL language layer, right? So because we get to do this at a very lower level, at a much lower level, I should say. It's optimal, and you're not perceiving any ingestion overhead because you're using identity in Fabric TW. So that's
thanks for saving me some of those CUs. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, yes. So because this is some work that needs to happen in parallel, right? And you never know if how many ingestion jobs are going to happen in parallel at any given time. We assign those ranges that I was just talking about. However, there could be gaps in between those ranges. And in fact, there will very likely be gaps in between those ranges. So we will assign a very large number to a range, let's say a range of 1 million values for 1 million rows, which starts with a very large number. The next ingestion job will get a range starting on a completely different number, right? And also, the order is not guaranteed, meaning the next range could be smaller than the previous one. However, uniqueness is always guaranteed. And once again, so everything that I'm saying here is similar to what you experience today with Azure Synapse dedicated pools. This is the same behavior as Synapse dedicated pools. The only difference is we produce a very large number with big int.
Okay. I think that makes great sense.
Yeah. So one thing that folks usually ask me is, hey Perry, if this is a very large number that you're producing and those very large ranges, is there a limit? Is there a chance I'll run out of identity values? Look, you have to produce quadrillion values. You have to have quadrillion rows. You have to be in that order of magnitude to run out of ranges. So this is a big int number. The range for big int, of course, is very, very large. I will say, though, that we only produce positive values. We will not use any negative. So all of the negative range of big int we don't use in identity. When you produce values, you always be the positive values, but still you have. I'm pretty sure there's no case in the industry where you need more rows than what we produce in identity.
Okay, fair enough. But hey, a question for you.
Yes.
I like to use a -1 record on my dimensional tables to signify like not available yet or something along those lines. How can I do a manual insert for that? Do you support that?
That's an excellent question, and it's a good time to talk about the limitations, Chris.
Okay.
So during preview, what we're shipping now is public preview of identity columns, right?
Okay.
During preview, identity insert is not supported quite yet.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, we recognize the scenario you just mentioned. So folks like to use those -1, -1, -2 values to designate to an unknown identity in a dimension, for example. And we work to provide support for this. During preview, it's not yet supported. So we don't yet support identity insert. Okay. So I've already mentioned the big int data type, which is the only data type supported. I just mentioned identity insert. We do not allow you setting the seed and the increment because we produce those
Okay.
large, big int numbers. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense anyways. The
Mm-hmm.
ways our customers were using seed and increment in Synapse dedicated pools, it's different. It's a different use case from SQL Server because you don't have the always incremental value anyway. So you can always
Right.
have gaps or values that are not sequential, right? So we don't support seed and increment. And of course, this is a limitation that also applies to SQL Server. It's worth mentioning. Each table can only have only one identity column. This is not specific to Fabric DW, of course.
So I gotta tell you,
Mm-hmm.
these are completely acceptable limitations for private
Oh,
preview, right? Like you're solving like this major looming issue that we've been having to like you said, build all these workarounds for. At a base level, you're implementing this and giving this functionality to us. Like we can definitively live without those items for the private preview, presuming like within a reasonable period of time you come along and give that to us, right?
that's good to hear, Chris. And
Yeah.
yes, we will work to support that.
Okay. Awesome. We have your commitment on that, right? Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
for identity insert, yes.
Okay. Cool. Just making sure, right? Like, but this is fantastic. I cannot tell you how much this makes me happy that this features.
Of course. But remember, it's for the negative scenarios, right?
Yes.
This is the one that we need. Yes.
Yep. No, this is fantastic. Now,
We'll
okay.
Yes.
So this is good. I love PowerPoints, and I love that you're showing us like what it can do, how you do it, the limitations. But like, does this actually work? Have you built this yet, or is this a pipe dream? And like 10 years from now, we're going to be looking for this.
It's done. It's out the door, Chris. We're ready to we're happy.
Shut the front door.
Yeah. Wait, we're doing demos? I thought your audience didn't like demos.
No. We need demos. Like I want to see beyond just a PowerPoint slide. So this is fantastic.
Of course. Okay, so let's have a look. So let me do a little bit of cleanup. I never know if I already created this table or not. So, okay, so I have here, the base syntax for a simple sales table. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what the columns are or what the data is. It's just just a regular table, right? And I have here an identity column. So the first task here is, will Fabric DW accept the syntax? And let's run this.
Come on.
Aha! Hey. So here it is. Yeah, it created a table with an identity value, right? And the cool thing, of course, we did all of the work here to fully integrate identity into the product. Okay? So if I do let's say I do create table test. Mm-hmm. Let's call this wrong syntax, right? And I'll say, column A. I'll type big int, and I'll call this identity, right? And I try to create this. So I have a spelling error here, obviously. So let me go ahead and try to create this. And of course, it's telling me incorrect syntax near identity, right? So, we have these Copilot features in the product where I can click a button and I understands what's wrong here with my syntax, and it automatically,
shut the front door.
This is all built into the product. The same would happen if I provided an invalid data type here as well. So of course we have Copilot integration and all of this stuff, Object Explorer integration as well. So the create script, if I try to produce the create script here from Object Explorer, it will do that for me. So I mean, this is a thing you would expect. This is nothing novel, but just to say that we've integrated the feature well into the product. So there you go. So all of those things are working as expected, but that's not the exciting part. Right? Let's move on. So of course,
actually, I think this is the exciting part. This means you've done more than just given me a command that if I happen to remember it, I can use. It means it's integrated into the system so that anyone can use it. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that, Chris, I should also say that if you're using CI/CD pipelines, for example, in Fabric, the same, we also honor the identity property, of course. That's what you would expect. So if you're replicating, if you're doing like prod test and dev, and you're replicating a workspace from dev to test and test to prod, of course we will honor the identity property of the column. So everything is built into the product,
Oh,
as you
interesting.
would expect. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. So obviously this, we just created this table. It is empty. So
Yep.
let's go ahead and insert a couple rows. Let me make this easier to read. So I'll put this here. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'll just insert a couple rows here. Doesn't matter the values. I'm just providing some values for the other columns here. It doesn't
Sure.
matter. But let's take a look at this column, at this table, now that I have an identity column. So we will run a select, where we'll select our identity column and a couple other columns here. And let's take a look at the identity values. So remember, we produce those very long numbers where we
Mm-hmm.
guarantee that they are unique, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
look at that.
yeah,
Holy cow.
yeah, this is a very, very large. I can say what number this is.
Yeah.
There's- I mean,
That is a large number.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a very large number, right?
Okay.
So anyhow, what you will notice here is that the end of the sequence is always incremental, right? So you
Okay.
have ending 4241 and then 4242, and fine, because this is just one ingestion job, right? However, if I had a different ingestion job that comes after or in parallel, doesn't matter, right? You will see that those ingestion jobs, they can have different ranges. So look
Look
at
at
the difference
that.
here. Yeah, see? And then the next range could be a value in between. So once again, we guarantee that the values are always unique, but there could be gaps in between them, right?
Okay.
So let me start this, and because this is going to take a minute to ingest, because I want like a larger number of rows, I'll explain what's
Mhm.
happening here.
Okay.
So I'm running a copy into job into the same table, right? So of course we're providing here the column list. If you're not familiar with copying into, this is this is just a column mapping from the source data to my destination table. So this is
Mm.
the name of the column in my destination table. We receive the first column in my incoming data. My FAQ product ID will have the second column, and so on and so on and so on. So I'm just
Huh.
providing a column list. Yeah.
I've
So
never seen that before. That's
yeah, yeah. I mean, this has essentially nothing to do with identity. It's just copying into, right? But the reason why I'm saying this is, and once again, this aligns with the behavior in Azure Synapse dedicated pools, which is if you have an identity column and you're using copy into, then yes, in that case you have to provide a column list, because copy into will not ingest values in the identity column. This is not required for the insert into, however. So insert into, you can run insert into, and you don't have to provide a column list, and we will understand that it will skip the identity column but provide values for the other ones, right? Anyhow, so the job completed, and the reason why I did this copy into is I want to show you a longer range of values. So if I select, I think this processed a few dozen million rows, maybe. So this has like a larger number of rows, but let's select the first 1,000 ones, right? And what you see here is I have the range from my second insert into statement. I have the range from my first one, right? And then here I have a range for my copy into task. Now, copy into, this task here is one ingestion job. So remember what I said in the beginning. We know how many rows you need to ingest. We will assign a range for that many rows, and we'll distribute that range across the compute nodes. So this job runs in parallel, but check it out. Always part of the same sequence. So you can see that the number here is increasing in the very end. So 1347, 1348, and so on and so on and so on, right? But it is a range on itself that is, independent from the previous couple ranges that we ingested data on, right? So that's the idea behind it, Chris. Does that make sense? I can't hear you for some reason. I can't hear.
Have we lost each other?
Now I hear you.
Okay.
Could you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you just fine.
Okay.
You're doing great. This
Okay.
makes sense. I love this. This is incredible.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, so that's how identity columns work. And of course, the last bit here is of the demo is, I mean, this is not exciting either, just to show you, I forgot which columns in my tables have an identity column. So this, you can, like you did before, you'll be able to query sys.identity columns, and join sys columns and sys tables and sys schemas or sys databases or whatever you want to do to get a list of identity columns in your warehouse. So we support those system views as well to give you an inventory of your tables, and this is all built into the product as well.
Hey, Perry, I gotta say, as someone who's like always going in and reviewing new databases, reviewing new warehouses, trying to like understand what's what in a place, that type of functionality is critical to the work that I do. So I gotta say, I thank you very much for like baking that in on the public preview as well. That is awesome.
It's thank you so much, Chris. I can't wait to see how folks will use identity columns. We do understand this is a highly anticipated feature. It's finally out, folks, and please keep the feedback coming. We are obsessed with feedback. We read your Reddit threads, we read your Fabric ideas on the ideas website, we read the YouTube comments, we read everything, and so please keep the feedback coming.
Awesome. Perry, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have questions, do reach out via Reddit, via the ideas threads. Let them know what issues you have. All right. Thank you guys so much. You guys have the best day ever. Peace. All right. And I know there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. This stuff can be a lot to take on. If you need help, don't worry. I got you. Head over bakertilly.com/digital. There's a little link you can click on to get some help. Myself or one of my buddies will reach out to you. We'll set up a meeting. We'll get you straightened out and taken care of. But if you think you can do this, I got faith in you. I know you can. I've got videos over here to help you out doing all those things. All right. You guys have the best day ever now.